If this isn't working,
episode 100.
Episode 100. Woo!
Well, yeah.
Oh god, that was loud. Peaky
Oh.
as hell. Right next to the
see.
microphones.
Hopefully, people got to check out that confetti.
Yeah.
I did actually
amazing.
find that that was a script from your room. I hope you didn't need it.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, it was a script.
I think that was my sack and crack script.
Oh yeah,
It does. It's a script. Motherfucker.
It's all good.
Well, thank God we filmed that because, yeah. So to those listening on the podcast,
We're in HD.
we're in HD
Visuals.
video over on YouTube. This is going
ridiculous.
on YouTube, right?
I'm actually a bit nervous. I'm like, oh my god, people can see us. But looking quite.
See,
good
I
from-
can't see me on the monitor,
Oh,
so I'm feeling pretty comfortable.
probably for the best.
Yeah. But we're on episode 100, and for those that are watching, we've gone minimal viable product, as you can see.
What
with
are you
our-
talking about, Wayne? This is
an
high.
iron.
That is high quality linen behind us.
Yeah, when you tried to iron it, it melted. But yeah, so we thought that given that it was episode 100, we were going to start shaking things up. So kind of as an experiment to see how it goes,
Yeah.
we've decided that we're going to add video to the mix as well over on YouTube. So if you prefer to see our pretty faces, which I mean, who doesn't,
Exactly.
right? Then hop on over to YouTube, hit subscribe, and you can watch us there. Which means then you can watch us when you're sat at home, or you can listen to us on your commute.
As if they haven't had enough.
It's
of us.
like you'll never be able to have an excuse to not listen/watch the episode.
I'm quite happy as well, Wayne. You are actually branded out today.
Yes, I am.
I was saying we're going to do some serious like product placement coming up.
Well, I want us to get some Powerful Nonsense mugs because I have my tea here,
Cheers, cheers,
Cheers.
cheers.
but I have no Powerful Nonsense mug,
Oh, that was good.
and I feel like it's necessary for us to get them.
I think so.
So keep an eye out for the mugs.
I feel bad that I'm not branded, but
You should feel bad. You should definitely feel bad. So, I mean, who would have thought that we got to episode 100?
what I think is funny as well is that actually, if you go back to episode 1 when we did audio, it was probably horrendous, and now we're probably.
Oh,
gonna,
mate, no, not probably. It is horrendous.
And now we're probably going to look back at episode 100 where we decided to do video and be like, how
is
the hell did we
awful.
put that out?
For the record, also, I'm just going to warn you now, Jem.
Yes,
It's pretty hot in here.
it is getting pretty warm. I'm a bit worried that I have grey
I
sleeves
am really hot.
on. You are looking.
And I can feel myself getting a sweat on already.
Oh god.
Thank God we don't have smell-o-vision.
Yeah, and hopefully you put on some deodorant today.
Yeah, I have. I definitely have. Also, right, so I was talking to my... No, actually, before I go there, episode 100, like, boom.
We got there.
I didn't think it was ever going to happen.
Not really. Not going from our.
I mean, that means
initial-
we've been going for pretty much 2 years.
I mean, we did better than the podcast we started at uni, which I think we got to about 3 episodes.
I think we did 3 episodes out of that. Yeah, that was a very different podcast.
Very different.
But yeah, and like we've gone from talking in coffee shops, which we still do for the record,
Mm-hmm.
to turning it into a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
to turning it into a business,
Yep.
to now producing video content.
Why not? Why not?
Times they are changing. That's the quote I was going for.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're embracing the future of putting ourselves out there, like probably a million other people who are starting YouTube vlogs or whatever else. But
Yeah. But hey, so so I was talking to my brother on the phone last night.
yeah.
And to those that have been listening for a long time, this will mean something to you. To those that haven't,
So
I
this
apologize.
is going to mean nothing to
Right.
anyone.
But my brother was laughing because he's studying computer science, and he's like, "Guess what I'm using as part of my course?" I was like, "What?" He's like,
You can tell me like Wix or something.
"Pythagoras theorem."
I was actually using it.
Right? I knew it'd mean something to you when I said it. He was like, "You're gonna hate me, but I'm actually using it." I was like, "Oh, well, you're like the first person I know to actually use Pythagoras theorem."
Saying
Congratulations!
that, I do know another techie guy who does.
Oh,
like-
don't tell me this because
But the thing is, you don't realise that some coders and web designers, they use some serious mathematics.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's the bit that people oversee. Okay, you can make a website on Wix and stuff, but
yeah,
they are doing some... The guy I used to know used to be doing these, like, using all the A's and B's and C's. And I think it's more to do with the actual algorithm stuff. But it still blows my mind. But yeah, it's good that your brother's found some use to Pythagoras.
congratulations to my brother
Yeah.
for finding use for something that I have always thought is quite useless. So,
enough. So episode 100, we have this episode thoroughly planned out.
Yes, we
what
do,
we're going to
as
talk
you can
about,
tell.
where we're going to go. I also wanted to find out the etiquette of video. Do we like look at the camera every now and then, or do we just like browse awkwardly around the space? Or is there an actual etiquette?
Well, I suppose we a bit of both. I mean,
Okay, mix and
direct,
match.
direct,
Straight
high
to the
camera.
lens. Yeah,
Talk to them, and yeah,
cool.
talk to each other. I mean, I have no idea what we're doing.
Well, I think I was going to say, like, obviously, before we started, you're like, well, we've got to do something special for episode 100.
Yeah.
So the first thing you do is go to Google and ask Google, what do you do for a milestone podcast? And actually, what was coming up was a lot of stuff about, like look back at what you've done, look back at some highlights. And I thought that might be quite a nice place to start, is actually think back to all those episodes we've done. Obviously, 99 episodes so far. We spoke to so many, like, interesting people.
Yeah, right.
Learned a lot, changed a lot. I mean, to say now we're on. I mean, when I was saying to everybody recently that since it's only taken me so long to be confident to actually talk and put out audio content and feel I have something to say, and now to
Well,
actually.
we went back and listened to one of the earlier episodes because I showed you how awful it was,
And we're like both pretty awkward.
and you were like,
There was a lot of use in what I was saying there. If you
If you can decode
if
it.
you decipher. But yeah, so now going to this sort of video content is like another sort of aspect of, okay, this is pushing me out of my comfort zone again. But I think, hey, why not? But yeah, I guess it'd be good to start off with, like, maybe talk about who have been some of your favourite guests or some bits of knowledge that you've picked up.
favorite guests. Well, I mean, I know who, and I think we both know. Only because of the reaction that I had post interview. I mean, the interviews that we did with Sully Breaks recently.
Yeah,
I've never had such an adrenaline rush coming off of an interview. And if you haven't checked them out, check them out. They're great. But I mean, we've had so many great guests. I actually think John Danaher really shone out for me.
Yeah, that one was one of those episodes where literally I was listening, and as I said, I felt like literally like my world had shaken. Like when you're looking around and be like, is anything even real? I was probably like feeling a bit nervous, you know, when you start getting like heart palpitations because you're kind of like, oh my God, my world has just been broken apart. But actually, yeah, that was definitely one episode that I think what I like as well is that our guests actually hit us from different angles. So like even when we had Amy on talking about her story, and I like it blows my mind that somebody can go through that much and still come out the other end and be like a fully rounded person with such an inspiring story to share. And then you've got like the TED talkers we've had on talking about emotional first aid, and I just think what I really like.
Can I say, sorry, on the emotional first aid, right? Valentine's Day is just, I don't know if you saw that I did this.
No.
Right? But Valentine's Day is just gone, and Valentine's Day just pisses me off. Whether or not I'm single or not, right? Maybe I am a bit of singleton, but I've never enjoyed Valentine's Day. My ex-girlfriends can tell you I've never really been a big Valentine's Day guy. I just get really... I think the reason it annoys me is because I think that there are so many... Like, loneliness, as Guy Winch would say, is a
Yes.
genuine issue.
Yeah.
A genuine issue which causes a lot of people a lot of harm, right?
Yeah.
And I think Valentine's Day, if you are single, is one of the loneliest days ever, right?
Uh-huh.
I had a great Valentine's Day, for the record. I spent it with my mate. We went to go see Deadpool. It was sold out. I was pissed off. But otherwise, a great day. So, as a kind of middle finger to Valentine's Day, I put Guy Winch's TED Talk on Facebook with, like, no comment, no nothing. It's just like, think about what you're doing.
What was the title of it? What,
It was the emotional first aid. I was going to put something about loneliness, but I was like, no, because then it's a little bit too. But then I thought it was so passive aggressive what I did. I was just on the tube and I was watching, like, just flicking through Facebook and Instagram and stuff and seeing all these, like, loved up people. And I was like,
I hate you.
well, no, it didn't bother me because I was like, fine, because I was off to see my mate at the time. But then I was kind of like, but all those people that have, like, issues and really do suffer from loneliness, I was like, can we have some consideration for these people, please? So then I just put that. I bet nobody watched it.
Probably not.
But it was just like, I felt like it was like a little rebellious moment.
I do think Valentine's Day is an interesting one, especially over Facebook, because you've got the people who are like loved up and going out on dates and like sharing the meal and the cards and the rings and everything else. and then you got everybody else who's either like the ones who are like in groups getting drunk and say, "Fuck Valentine's Day, I don't need it anyway. Who needs somebody to love and care for them? Not me." And so
I'm
it's
independent.
Yeah, I do not need anybody. So it's quite interesting to see, but yeah, I do think it's one of those days that probably highlights the loneliness, but at the same time, I think it brings people together. I just think it's, don't get too hung up on it. It's
Yeah, I mean,
just another day
I
like
don't.
that.
But I always think about the people that are suffering through Valentine's Day. Because I have been there in the past. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much anymore. I'm just like, Valentine's Day.
So that's an interesting point, Wayne. So throughout the podcast, since we started, you've
Don't go there. I know where you're going.
You've been a singleton looking for love.
Can we not?
You don't want to go there for episode 100.
I mean, no, not really. I mean,
Okay.
I've had my fair share of dates and things and complex relationships.
The
and
good thing with
complex-
video, we can actually put your number up on the screen as well. So in terms, we won't go down the relationship route, but where do you feel like, obviously, where do you feel like you might have grown in the last few years when it comes to relationship? Like before there, you were saying, obviously with Valentine's, it was more of like a little dig, putting that stuff out there. But how do you feel that you've kind of evolved over this almost 100 episodes after this one?
I mean, I very much do feel that I have, as a person, and by relationships, I'm talking whether that's romantic, friendly, business, whatever. I feel like I really have grown as an individual. That I really have calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you can probably agree to that. I mean, you get the brunt of most of my stress, to be fair. But I think, generally speaking, I'm much more considerate about the way I react to things and to other people. I take more time to... I think I was in a very interesting place when we started this. I was just coming out of this couple of years of just not... of basically what I think was a bit of an identity crisis in hindsight.
That was the whole reason for me starting my blog and podcast initially, was this idea that, okay, I'm in flux and I've got to kind of express this in some way. And I guess the blog initially for Powerful Nonsense became like a sort of diary where I'm kind of like assessing through my thoughts on life and how things are changing. And I guess then you got pulled into that as well. And then I think
Kicking and screaming.
like, no, I don't want to do it. But no, I think it was good because I think sometimes the fact that we had each other to kind of bounce the ideas off of, I think a lot of people go through that, probably those periods of flux where they're kind of, their world's changing, they're looking at things in different ways. And I think sometimes you can start to think you're going a bit nuts.
Yeah.
If there's not somebody to kind of like bounce it off of. And I think that's what's been quite interesting, is actually we've kind of like mutually self-developed together in the way that we've found people that are interesting to talk to, who are ahead of us. And I think it's probably just a normal reaction from young people just trying to find your feet initially. And like they say, it's your 20s are that sort of mixed up period of time where you're not meant to have everything together. We don't have it together. We're bloody sitting in the living room recording a podcast in the middle of the day. Like, we're having fun, but we don't have the answers and we don't have it together. And it's kind of that exploration.
And I think that's what's been great about doing this podcast, is that it has been such an exploration of self. It's been such an exploration of relationships. It's been an exploration of business. It's been an exploration of mindset and lifestyle, and just every aspect of life has been challenged, I think, by this, which I think is wonderful, and it's a great gift to have inadvertently given ourselves.
Yeah, and I think what's good about it as well, I think so many people may have these thoughts, and I think for us, which I think why I was watching a show the other day as well, and it was about this guy who had like mental health issues, and he started blogging, and I think it was on that BBC program that we were speaking about, the YouTubers, and this guy was basically saying that he was suicidal, and then he started vlogging and putting out his kind of thoughts online, and he started finding this audience of people who were listening and helping put his thoughts into perspective.
Yeah.
And I think, if anything, like if someone's thinking, oh, it'd be cool to do a podcast, it'd be cool to start writing a blog, I think what's really good about it is that you actually get to sit down and kind of clarify those thoughts. Like when you write a blog, you're kind of trying to make sense of what's in your head, and usually it's a bit of a mess. And even with a podcast, we kind of talk about stuff we have no idea where it's going, but by the end of it, we've kind of got to a point. I think that's the value that is in producing content, and it's available nowadays. You'll find people who want to listen to you, but it's a great way of just expressing how you feel, because I think sometimes it'd be really dangerous, which you
Yeah.
can see from that guy who was quite suicidal, to kind of get really stuck in your own ways of thinking. And that's what we sort of say a lot of the time, is like, try to be volatile in the sense that you're in flux, that there is no concrete, this is the way you do it, this is not the way you do it. It's kind of open yourself up, that other people, we've had people on and they blew our minds, and they blew our perspectives on
Yeah.
relationships, on
Yeah.
money, on business. And I think for me, that's the reason why, for me, the podcast has to just keep continuing, because
Yeah.
I want every year to be like, okay, that person knocked me in another direction, that person pushed my mind in that direction. I think that's, for me, is why the podcast is so important.
Yeah, and I think just actually in terms of what you're saying about knocking things in a different direction, like the way I pay attention to my own career outside of this has completely changed, and I think that has been because of the podcast. A lot of it, just the way I approach certain things and the way that I think about certain things is much less kind of luck oriented and kind of going, I just have to work as hard as I can and just hope something's going to happen. And it's much more calculated. And I think a lot more about what I'm doing. And I'm actually finding that the toll that it takes on my energy levels is nowhere near as high as it used to be. But that's because I'm working smarter than harder, I think.
Yeah, I
And
think,
there's still so much room to improve.
yeah, I think it's helped you to manage yourself better. I think a lot of people say, like, all the time, oh, I'd love to do that kind of self-employed or entrepreneurial thing, but I could never motivate myself. I could never have that kind of discipline. And I think it's one of those things that I think we've managed to hone. Like, even making sure we get out an episode every week, it's taught us skills that we now pass on to, like you do with your acting. One thing I wanted to kind of say on the acting front really was the idea that, as well, we've been doing this for 2 years, and we know a lot of people who have been in that creative space who are now, their lives have gone in all kinds of different directions that we never expected. And I think for us, really, the fact that we've been doing this and it's kind of a creative endeavor has kind of kept our passion and our kind of energy alive for being creative.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, obviously, as an actor, you probably feel this as well, but I think if you were surrounded all the time by people who are in that 9 to 5, and maybe a lot of our friends are, I think it's easy to stop thinking differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to stop, like, pushing yourself and stop putting yourself out there. Not saying we're, like, elitist in any kind of
not
way,
at
or
all,
that we
not
feel
at all.
great. It's just that it gives us that ability to keep wanting to push ourselves, keep wanting to stretch ourselves. Like, we're not making a full-time income from the podcast, but it makes us money. But it's not something that we're kind of like, there's no end goal to us. It is that idea that we just want to keep pushing ourselves in new directions, really.
Yeah, and I think we've had this conversation before, and I just think about the fact that, and maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's not just us, and it probably isn't. Well, it isn't just us, but in terms of like this thing of we're going through this journey in our mid to late 20s, and turn late 20s later this year. But like some people don't hit this until they have their midlife crisis. And I think that puts us in such good stead. And I think anybody that listens, I think you're in a good place because you're kind of going on the journey with us. And I think that's what's been great about the podcast, actually, is we said from the beginning, we don't consider ourselves experts. We are just relaying what's going through our minds at the time as we record this podcast. And I think the sort of content that we've been producing, you can really see how that shifted. I mean, some of the earlier episodes were about money management and things like that, because that was something that we were like, we need to start managing our money. Like, we're young and shit with money. Like, and now we don't really talk about that much stuff. It's much more mindset growth stuff. Not to say that it wasn't there anyway, but I think as we're getting older, potentially wiser, hopefully wiser, we're now starting to explore other things. And so what's going on in our lives is what ends up being produced for you guys. And so you're learning the lessons that we're learning as we go. And quite often, as you've said, like we'll have a guest on and they'll completely like blow our minds about something we hadn't even thought about. And then that will then affect our journey from there.
And I think the fact that we know we produce it every week kind of has to force us to kind of learn where to go next, rather than feeling like there's an end point. It's like, okay, we need to talk about something new next week. So what areas of our life do we feel we might need to improve, or what kind of books am I reading? What am I drawn to at the moment? And usually maybe it's a TED talk that I've started watching on YouTube, which links me to somewhere else, or maybe it's a book that I heard someone mention on Snapchat, or whatever it might be. And I think that's what I love. It's just this fluidity that we have no idea where it's going. We had no idea where this episode was going, but it's kind of like, that is part of the fun. And I wrote a blog recently, which probably go out soon, is this idea that we're not so hung up on the goal of this podcast. The goal is not to make sure that everybody who listens becomes an entrepreneur. The goal is not to make sure that you do everything we say. The goal is actually, there is no goal. There is just, this is us. This is us on a journey. We are learning things. We're sharing things. And there's a massive benefit that we can kind of share stuff with you, which helps us to kind of take those thoughts in or change them and make them our own. And so, yeah, I just think for me, this podcast is just a really great way to kind of, it's like signing yourself up to like a life coaching in a way. It's kind of like you have to go, you're going to produce something, and whatever that is, it's going to, every week I'm pushed to think of new content or new aspects of myself that I want to explore.
But the brilliant thing about this versus maybe some life coaching thing is quite often the life-changing ideas are coming from yourself. As you're interviewing someone, or as we're talking, you'll say something, I might not necessarily agree with what you've said or the guest has said, but it will certainly make me think differently, and then affect my decisions based on that change. I think honestly, it's such a gift, really. I think, and I think both of us had underestimated how much it was going to affect us. When we started doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you made on the idea that I think a lot of any kind of development into oneself, I don't think it's usually so much about adding more strings to your bow. I think the more we've learned, actually, the more we realise we don't know, which means that there's more questions to be asked. But at the same time, then we're kind of stripping away and moving back to ourselves in a way, in the sense that we are. That's why I like as well that I feel like it's playful, and I really love the fact that it's playful, and I really like that we don't take it too seriously. And I think that's one thing that before I'd be so afraid of doing. I'd be so afraid to kind of look like a fool or say something foolish. And then I was just like, well, actually, like when you think about kids all the time, they'll play, they'll do things, they'll colour things the wrong colour, they'll do things in such creative ways. And I feel that this is a way that we can actually go back to our kind of childhood play, and it is us playing with ideas, playing with concepts, finding new playmates to talk to and see how they think.
Yeah. Man, so good.
So where do you hope to see, where would you like to see it in a couple of years' time then? Obviously, I think 100 episodes means we've probably been, it's 2 years, obviously.
Oh, it's like a business meeting on air. Well, I think I've said to you a few times, I ultimately see Powerful Nonsense becoming, and I think this is a sign of it, becoming more than just an audio podcast. I see it being a multimedia thing. Is kind of my thing, and maybe, you know, I've obviously got a bias because my background is in performance and things like that, and entertainment. So I have that bias in my thinking of where I think it could go. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, obviously, I hope that it's going to grow and become an even more significant part of our working lives. Because, I mean, ultimately, if this could pay my bills, I'd be very happy.
Which I generally believe it will be doing.
I think eventually we could get there, and that's also another thing that I've loved about doing this. Actually, for the record, is that we've gone from talking about. I mean, you've been self-employed for as long as we've been doing this anyway, and so have I. But we've talked about building business, and we've talked about living off of your passions, and we've taken big steps as we've been doing this to get there, and I think this could be another step in that direction, and so it's been interesting to see how what we've been talking about has started to come into fruition, and still be free for everyone. And yeah, so I just kind of, that's kind of my thing. I just think it's going to grow. It's going to become multifaceted. Yeah.
Yeah, I just really think that by doing the kind of video content that we're doing now, I hope that people, it's another layer of us that they see. And I think that it's always been something I've been really afraid of, but I think the world is kind of digital is lining up that people are as exposed as they can be. We won't be taking our clothes off yet. Maybe later on. Maybe later on. But I do feel that I want people to, like, I love when I meet new people. I love when we speak to new people on the podcast. And I want people to be our friends. I want people to feel like they know us inside and out. And they can send me book ideas. Or they can send me guest ideas. Or they can ask me questions and we're going to answer back. And I feel that the next step is to give you that little next level of glimpse into our lives. And actually, hopefully, we can build better connections with you guys.
And that's actually one thing, actually, that I wish has been better so far, and this is almost a plea.
He's begging.
One thing that we have always been talking about is, can we get more engagement? Like, we want to be talking to our audience more, and I'll get messages off people, off like friends that listen to it, being like, "Oh, I really love what you're doing" and stuff. And that's lovely, and keep doing that, friends. But to those that don't know us, I'd really love you to like start communicating with us via Twitter. I mean, we've had a few that have started talking to us on Twitter, which is great. But like, just start sending those tweets to either Powerful Nonsense or me and Jem personally, or the emails. Maybe do a bit of Gary V email things and stuff on the video. But yeah, get in contact with us, because I think one thing that we would love to start seeing is to really start seeing a sort of community building around Powerful Nonsense, because we know there's a community, because we are part of the community of mainly people that we've had on the show. And it's lovely to see, like, Amy Ostreicher sent us a tweet saying, "Oh my God, I've just been on Unmistakable Creative," which we'd suggested that she check out. And then Srini Rao of Unmistakable Creative sent us a tweet being like, "Oh, thank you for recommending her," and that's lovely.
And we know, like, James Lambert has been on so many new podcasts since being on our podcast.
And so we're getting this nice community, but it seems very insular. It seems very much the community we've built of guests, and we'd like the listeners to be involved in that community as well. And I think YouTube could be a great way to do that. So if you are on YouTube, please just leave a comment. If you've been a long-time listener, leave a comment. If you're a new-time watcher/listener, then leave a comment and let us know what you think. And also, leave those iTunes reviews.
I think we've had one in the last month. Which
we did have one from a guy named
Kofi.
I'm gonna do it. Because I have been meaning to read this out.
This is how much reviews mean to us.
Because we forgot to do it for Sully Breaks, because we got so involved in actually Sully Breaks. So let me just find it, and I'm going to read it. Because
I love how we actually both remembered his name as well.
The main reason I remember his name, I must admit, is because of Kofi Kingston, the wrestler, because I'm a wrestling geek. And I was like, "Oh, Kofi."
Fair enough.
I hate to say Kofi. I'm sorry if that's offensive. But
I used to have a friend at primary school called Kofi. So maybe it is that Kofi, but who knows?
Kofi Amoakos?
Amoakos, yeah.
I'm going to go with Amoakos. Sorry, Kofi, if I have butchered your name. Nice simple one. 5 stars. Really enjoyable show.
That's all we need.
That's all we need.
Every now and then.
So if you are enjoying the show, just leave us a 5-star review, please.
Yeah.
And we'd be eternally grateful. But honestly, no, I really do want a nice community to be built up around Powerful Nonsense.
And we're based in London, and we usually have some free time available here and there. And I know we would love just to get people together, whether it's like a coffee morning or just have a chat, just to get to know.
We should do like a meetup, a Powerful Nonsense meetup one.
No, that's what I'd love to do, because I'd love to know like what people like to hear, what people don't like to hear. All kinds of things, really. I just think it helps us gauge where to go next, because you might be seeing a gap that we're not really haven't really got into, or maybe an aspect of ourselves that you think, oh, maybe you should push this side of it a bit more. And I think that's what we really need. We just need to be pushed in the right direction, and we need to make sure that what we're doing is serving you as well, but is also on a level with us as well.
So we're gonna have to start wrapping up, because we got to go record episode 101.
I know it's been a bit of a random 100, but we knew it was going to be that way. It's been quite fun actually doing it on video, so I have to see how it looks, and I'll have to see if my eyes are like wandering all over the place, and I've been like not looking at the camera too much.
We can work on that, Jem.
We're going to work on that.